Jonathan and I met in the music school at Northwestern University about 9 years ago. At that time, we were both primarily composing music for traditional orchestral instruments such as string quartets and brass quintets, often including electronic elements as well in the music. As we became friends and got to know each other's music, we realized that we were both interested in alternative methods to our own intuitive sense of musical development for generating and organizing sounds. Many of you will know that this is not a particularly new idea for composers, to seek out external, pre-existing models for creating music. Composers in the medieval and Renaissance eras famously used simple mathematical techniques to determine the sequences of pitches and rhythms in their music. More recently, concepts relating to the physical and biological sciences have also been explored as a basis for music composition, including music based on chaos theory, brain waves, acoustics, particle physics, astronomy, animal communication, and genetics, to name just a few. So back in 2008, Jonathan and I began collaborating on an ongoing series of sound installation projects, which would allow us to explore some new ways of making music similar to the ones just mentioned. Our first project was an outdoor installation that recorded and amplified sounds from beneath the surface of a pond. This piece, called the Argus Project, requires special submersible microphones, or hydrophones, which are typically used by marine biologists to study whale and dolphin communication. In the Argus Project, the hydrophones amplify the sounds of gurgling bubbles, squeaking insects, and a wide variety of unsettling sounds of unknown origin. As a way of creating variation and change in the music, light and temperature sensors are used to track changes in the environmental conditions outside of the pond. This information is then digitally scaled and translated into musical information. So as a multi-hour performance fades from day into night, fluctuations in light and temperature might cause the overall soundscape to become more or less reverberant, or to move higher or lower in pitch, for example. In this way, we have attempted to create a performance situation in which both the musical materials, i.e. the sounds themselves, and the transformation and development of those materials over time are both determined by the environment. Nature becomes both instrument and performer. Our role as sound artists is simply to provide a technological framework which allows these sounds and processes to become more fully exposed.
In 2011, Lee and I completed our second installation, Cryoacoustic Orb, where we were still concerned with water sounds, only this time the water was frozen. We took the same hydrophones that we had used in the Argus project, froze them inside large spheres of ice with the aim of capturing the melting process. In Cryoacoustic Orb, we took two large polycarbonate spheres of ice, or orbs. We mounted them on display pedestals, and within these display pedestals, there were two high-wattage heat lamps, and they had a dual function. One was to illuminate the ice from below, the other was to precipitate the melting process. Now, many of you are familiar with the sound that you get when you drop an ice cube into a glass full of lukewarm water. Popping, cracking, fizzing sounds. That's caused by the fracturing rifts, the expanding fissures, the escaping pockets of air within the ice, created by the sudden temperature change of the ice. In Cryoacoustic Orb, we're simply expanding, prolonging, enlarging, and amplifying this process. At this point, we would like to acknowledge Brooks DeWetter-Smith, a distinguished professor of music here at UNC Chapel Hill. He's a photographer who took these magnificent close-up stills of our installation that you see behind us. Now, in both of these installations, we've attempted to create a locus in which the musical material and the transformation of that material are derived from environmental objects. In the Argus project, the sounds are taken from the subaquatic ecosystem, and they're kind of performed out. In the cryoacoustic orb, the sonic aspects of an increasingly ubiquitous geological process are unveiled. In some ways, we extract knowledge from these objects. They're beautiful, abstract, and certainly unpredictable. So in some ways, we might be subverting our expected roles as composers, maybe even failing as composers of musical works, but I don't think it matters. I think the search for new sounds, requiring new compositional methods, is inherent. It's a realization that the music is already there. Thank you.